Adam Collins here for All Out Cricket, fueled by Kookaburra Cricket. This is the final word with big Josh Hazlewood, the Australian fast bowler, after Australia have salvaged an unlikely draw on day 5 at Ranchi to put them well in the game to win this series. Josh, you must feel incredible. Having come here, everyone wrote you off, thought you were going to lose 4-0. You won the first test match and still in there fighting ahead of this last rubber. The mood around the camp?
Yeah, the mood's really good. I think that last day of the Ranchi test, sticking it out and batting out that whole day, I think it really gave some momentum moving forward into this game, and it's good to get away with the draw.
Let's go through that. So the test match starts with Australia batting first. Steve Smith makes another 100. He's made 1900s in 53 test matches. They're ridiculous numbers. Glenn Maxwell, the big show, comes here, makes 100. His maiden test 100. How important was that for the side? The guy that was outside the 11 to begin with, had a patchy record at test level, comes here, makes a ton. That must have been a special moment as well. Yeah,
we know how talented Maxie is, and he's shown it in the limited overs formats, and to get him to show it in the test arena in probably the highest intensity you can against a great opposition. It's fantastic to see him do that, and really helped us out. We're in a pretty tight spot there. It could have gone either way. I think at 4 for 140, I think we were. So, yeah, Maxie played brilliantly, and the skipper, as always, did his job.
He lost his opening bowling partner. Mitchell Starc went down in between the 2 test matches, but you got back Pat Cummins, his first test match in 5.5 years. You played a lot of cricket with him in New South Wales. What was it like having a bloke next to you who can bowl 150 clicks and really provide a lot of support to you leading the attack?
Yeah, it's always nice. It's always nice to have Starkey there and bowling fast spells and changing a game, in the space of a spell. And now to have Paddy, who can do the same thing. So it's great to see him back in the Test team and doing really well. Even on a wicket that didn't provide great pace, he still, bounced 3 or 4 guys out. So it's just amazing to see what he can do.
Took 4 wickets, including that of Virat Kohli, who's under the pump. He hasn't had a run this whole series. He's lashing out at the media. He's playing his shots off the field. How's that going with you guys back in the camp? Are you just watching on, taking a bit of interest in what Virat says each time he fronts the cameras?
Yeah, you never know what he's going to say. I think he's just trying to push the pressure aside and take the focus, I guess, off his batting. We're flying the way he's going at the moment. I think every bowler's got him out once now, so feel that great sense of getting a great player out, and he's just doing his thing on the field, and we just let him go.
The story did take a twist though. India went on to make 602. They batted for 210 overs. This guy bowled the most amount of overs he's ever bowled in Test cricket, 44 of them. How's the body, and how did it feel when you were bowling to Che Pujara, whose resistance typically was just relentless?
Yeah, the body's pretty good. It is quite a number of amount of overs. We luckily only had to field 1 innings, but Pujara's a great player and loves batting time most of all. So I think he faced a record amount of balls for an Indian player, and quite sick of bowling to him actually.
Riddiman Saha also made a ton, but Steve O'Keefe was the real story here. Bowled 77 overs. He said himself, had he bowled 3 more overs, he would have got a new ball to bowl with himself, he felt like. But that's 18, only 17 times a bowler's bowled more than overs and 77 in an innings. How's he going after that marathon session, and can he back it up in Dharamshala if required? Yeah, well, he usually bowls about 50 or 60 overs in every net session, so I think he's accustomed to it, and I've never seen a guy I love bowling more than him, so I think he was thriving on it out there in the middle, and he'll be ready to go next test. Right, so it comes to the 5th day. Australia lose David Warner and Nathan Lyon before stumps. The 9 of these guys yet to bat when they stood around and had their own little preparation session beforehand to talk it through. What was it like? Were you petrified, thinking I'm going to have to come out and face 5 overs to save a test match here? Did those thoughts go through your head as the number 11?
They do occasionally. In moments like that, as you just mentioned, you always think worst case that you have to face the last couple of overs and it's always on you, but I think, on that wicket there was still a pretty good track. I thought 2 or 3 guys were always going to stand up and do the job, and happened to be Shaun Marsh and Pete. So, fantastic effort from those 2 guys.
Ravinder Jadeja had pretty much a swimming pool to land his ball into. The footmarks had grown and grown as Pat Cummins' spell went longer and longer, but he couldn't get Shaun Marsh out. He did so well, in particular as a left-handed batsman. Peter Hanscom made a point of saying this to us yesterday, that he was so proud of the way that he played. Talk us through how the Shaun Marsh story for you guys in the rooms, having came into this squad as a subcontinental specialist and really delivering in consecutive test matches.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. When he came in Sri Lanka and scored 100 as well, and coming over here, I think his spot always feels like it's a bit under pressure, and just goes out and does his job time and time again. And yesterday, especially as you mentioned, that was probably the worry, having quite a number of left-handers in our top order with that rough outside the off stump, and he just negated it beautifully all day, and I think it was a touch easier for the right-hander, but the way Shaun played was outstanding.
And what about Peter Hanscom's dancing feet? After he got a feel for it, batting for about an hour and a half, started charging R. Ashwin, you know, the #1 ranked spinner in the world. That must have provided plenty of confidence that you had that game under control.
Yeah, Pete really looks at home on these type of wickets against quality spinners. So they've always said he's a good player of spin, even in Australia. So you know, he's done his job beautifully in India, and I think, you know, big future ahead of Pete.
So what they've earned is an opportunity here at Dharamshala, the ground behind us, a glorious cricket ground in the foot of the Himalayas. It feels like a weird kind of place to have such a cauldron in such a spiritual, peaceful, serene setting. The contradiction between that? Yeah,
it does. You know, it doesn't quite feel like you're in India here, I guess, and hopefully there's a good crowd there on day one and throughout the Test match, and yeah, I think it's going to be a fiery game.
We're promised a track which could have some bounce and pace in it as well from the curator, with some comments in the paper, which will of course encourage Josh. But the historical significance of playing in a Test match, probably Australia's biggest Test for at least a decade, perhaps longer, and the potential to become only the second side to beat India in India from Australia since the Beatles were still writing music. You know, how does that make you feel, knowing how close you are to that piece of history?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting when you put it that way. You know, you always want to be part of these big moments and be remembered, I guess, for doing well in these type of games. And I guess that you want the big players to stand up in what you just mentioned. Is a great Test match coming up, and really looking forward to it. So can't wait.
Josh Hazlewood, thank you for joining the final word. All Out Cricket, fueled by Kookaburra Cricket. Kookaburra's own Josh Hazlewood, of course. We'll see you after this, hopefully, riveting Test match.
My wicket keeping tip is pretty simple. You know, nice big hands. You always want to be keeping your head right above your gloves, so you can watch the ball whatever it does. So nice big hands, head right above it. If it's out wider, head moves with it. Obviously footwork's the most important thing, I believe, as a keeper, and for me I get a nice low stance so I can track the ball as it rises, and if it stays low I'm already there, so I think footwork's the most important part of keeping.